Okay, I have Andrew Schenk, Charlie Brown, Dave Fritz, John Wagner, Johnny McCluskey, Mina Chu is on, Nick Mazanek is on, Penny Cope, Robbie Novak, and Todd Jackson. Do we have anyone else that is on the call?
Bob Gauthier.
Hey, Bob.
Mary
Hey, Bob.
Kalkovich.
Mary.
Mary Kalkovich. Thanks.
Kirk Bruce.
Development.
Tom Mantrek.
Hey, Tom. Who was the one right before Tom?
Development.
Okay.
Kirk Bruce, Affiliated Developers.
Kirk Bruce. Thanks, Kirk.
Yes, sir.
Ravonda Zordahl.
Hi, Ravonda.
Hi.
Do we have anyone from Rockcrest or GMD on?
Sheila Rice is on the line.
Hey, Sheila.
Sheila.
All right. I think I'm going to turn it over to Pat at this point so we can be official. The other thing that I do want to just, before I do that, is I want to just remind everyone that we are on a webinar. I am going to mute the lines again just so there won't be a lot of distractions. If you do want to talk, and that probably includes board members, hit *2 to unmute your line so you're able to talk. And we will accept public comments. You can do that by getting our attention on the webinar call, or you can actually type it into the webinar, and we'll look at those as they come in. When you do talk, we would appreciate that you introduce yourself by giving us your name, your title, and your company. And I was going to announce the bathroom locations, but I hope you all know where your own bathrooms are at. So, I'm going to go ahead and mute the lines. I just muted my line. Sorry.
All right.
Go ahead, Pat.
This is Pat Melby. I think we've done introductions, so we won't do that again. But this is a time that we allow for public comment from any member of the public who's on the call, and anything that's not on the agenda but within our agency jurisdiction. So is there any public comment? Anything anybody'd like to bring up? Hearing no public comment, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the June 4, 2018 meeting. Is there any board comments or questions regarding those minutes? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public regarding the June 4 minutes? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion and a second to approve those minutes.
This is Sheila. I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Sheila. Do we have a second?
This is Jeanette, and I'll second that.
Thank you, Jeanette. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of June 4, 2018. Is there any comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes of June 4th is approved. We're going to move to the home ownership program. Vicky's here. Vicky, would you like to go ahead?
The agenda item I have this morning is for lender approval for Premier Home Mortgage. Premier Home Mortgage is an independent mortgage banking company that currently has over 75 loan originators in 13 states. Their corporate office is in Rapid City, South Dakota, and their Montana lending location is in Helena, where they have staff who have experience with board programs. Premier is also participants of bond loan programs in South Dakota, Wyoming, and Colorado. Premier Home Mortgage Incorporated is interested in participating in the board's mortgage loan and MCC programs. They're approved to underwrite FHA, RD, and VA loans, and they'll sell the servicing of their loans to Montana Board of Housing. They have the required errors and omissions and fidelity bond insurance coverage. The requirements have been met. Our requirements have been met. And per their December 31st, 2017 audited financials and their May 31st, 2018 unaudited financials, Premier had an equity to asset ratio that meets the criteria of 6% that the board requires for participating lenders. The independent auditor's report of their 2017 financials did identify certain deficiencies in internal controls that are considered material weaknesses and instances of noncompliance with requirements on major HUD programs for the year ended December 31st, 2017. Premier also included in their financial statement information corrective action plan that indicated that corrective action of the findings was either in process or had been completed. And their financial statements are available for board members to review. There are representatives on the line from Premier Home Mortgage that are available for questions or comments. And staff requests that the board approve Premier Home Mortgage Incorporated as participating lender for Montana Board of Housing. And it's John Fritz and Robbie Novak are on the line from Premier.
Would anybody from Premier like to make a presentation to the board regarding this application?
And it's star 2 to unmute your line.
I take it that no one from Premier wants to comment on this. Are there any questions or discussion for board members regarding this application?
This is Sheila. Vicki, I had a question about if someone fails sometime in the future, anybody, not necessarily this lender, fails to meet the board's requirements, what's the monitoring we do on that?
We collect annual financial information from our lenders. There's a recertification that happens every year, and we can deny them access to board programs.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. With that, Pat, I would move that we approve this lender as an approved lender for the Montana Board of Housing program.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, this is Jeanette. I'll second again.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Before we move on to the vote, are there any comments or questions from the members of the public regarding this application? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept Premier's new lender application. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Right, is that all single family?
And then I had emailed out along with that agenda item the dashboard for July. So I just wanted to update the board on where we were at with the new bond issue that closes next week. The 2018 B issue, we ended up bumping that issue up from 40 million to 50 million because over the summer we've had a lot of interest in the program. And as of August 1st, we had just over $16 million of that 50 million left that had been unreserved or unpurchased. And we continue to get reservations in. As of this morning, we were closer to 15 million. So I think that bumping it up to 10 million was, or 50 million was definitely a good choice for us. And the programs continue to do very well. And the dashboard is there and available for you to review the stats for July reservation activity and June loan activity.
Just a comment. As we were watching this and deciding on the size amount of the bond deal, we were a little concerned that by the time we got to closing, we'd be out of money, similar to the last bond issue we did. So I'm really glad we kind of decided to go up, or else that's exactly where we would have been here in August, as we'd have been looking at running out of money and doing a bond issue almost immediately. So I recognize Vicki and the finance crew for good work on that projection.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from board members regarding the dashboard? Any comments or questions from members of the public? We'll move on to multifamily program. Did Vicki, you and Mary want to change places? I'm sure we're planning to do that anyway. Okay. Mary.
Patrick. Hello.
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 Hello?
Patrick,
Yes?
this is Goshi. I've been trying to make motions in seconds. You guys haven't been able to hear me?
Not till now.
Okay, well, I got it finally unmuted, I guess. All right, sorry.
A reminder for anyone, *2 will unmute your phone, and that isn't intuitive, so it's good to remind folks as we go through this.
I think that's what was going on, Bruce. I have on my phone, I have a mute at the bottom, and I thought that was working, but apparently I had to go to *2. I'm good now.
Okay, yeah, *2 to mute, *2 to unmute. All right, Mary, multifamily program, Roosevelt Villas.
Okay, good morning, board members. Roosevelt Villas was awarded credits in 2017 housing credits. They're looking for an additional credit request of $33,000 or the $330,000 for the 10-year total. Applications were submitted for home and housing trust funds and not funded in late 2017. A home application was resubmitted. The home application is an open cycle, and funds were awarded July 11th. The housing trust fund application dates are yet to be announced, and there's a real concern that they're going to be, that deadline is late for them to get rolling and get this project done. Staff has reviewed the additional requests, and we request the board consider and approve the additional credit request. There's a letter in your packet that came from the board.
Is there anybody from Roosevelt Villas that would like to comment regarding the request for additional credits?
Chairman Malby, members of the board, this is Gene Luer. I appreciate your consideration of the request. As Mary indicated, this request gets the project back to about what the original application was, given the unavailability of HTF funds through timing and the delay that's been caused by both home and HTF award processes. I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion from members of the board? Are there comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, board, what's your pleasure?
Start you to unmute.
This is Gochi. I'll make a motion to approve the additional credits.
This is Johnny. I'll second.
Thank you, Johnny. Then moved and seconded to approve the request for additional credits. Are there any comments or questions regarding the motion from the members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Copper Ridge 9 additional credit request.
Copper Ridge 9 was awarded credits in 2018 housing credit. The additional request is for $47,282 or $472,820 for the 10-year total. Construction hard costs, loan costs, and loan interest have increased. The operating expenses have also been impacted. There was a letter also attached to this that gives more detail. Staff has reviewed the additional credit request and requests the board consider and approve the additional credit request.
Thank you, Mary. Is there any representative of Copper Ridge 9 would like to comment on this request?
Ravonda, do you want to go ahead? Or do you want me to? Ravonda.
I'm just unmuted, Tom. Yeah, Tom, you can do it.
Members of the board, Bruce, Mary, staff, thank you for evaluating this request for additional credits. The construction industry is, in the almost 30 years I've been doing multifamily housing, is as overheated as it can possibly be. Never seen it this way before. The tariffs that are bouncing around Washington right now are also creating havoc in material supplies and whatnot. We have the Copper Ridge 9 development is a negotiated contract with Markovich Construction out of Butte, which company is well known to the board, and we have gone through the plans, done as much value engineering as we possibly can without compromising either the quality or the energy efficiency of the properties, and we're simply short-sourced. So appreciate any consideration you could give us on this request for additional credits. We should it be granted, we expect to close before the end of August and start construction immediately. The companion project, Copper Ridge 4, the general contractor bid date is August 15th, and we expect to start Copper Ridge 4 in companionship with Copper Ridge 9. Thank you.
Are there other comments from the applicant? Are there questions or discussions from members of the board? Mary,
This is Sheila.
Right, Sheila.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Whoever started, go ahead.
I just was curious of what the source for these credits and also the ones with Roosevelt Villas.
There are the 18 credits that were not awarded.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Sheila. Did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
The question was the source for the credits, and there were 18 credits that were not awarded. Sheila?
This is Sheila. I popped off for a minute through my own inadvertent fumble fingers. So I wanted to ask the developer two things. One is, do you have a firm bid for this yet? And then secondly, have you agreed to defer a greater amount of developer fee to make the numbers work?
What was the first question? I'm sorry, Sheila.
Do you have a firm bid?
Yes, Boston Financial is locked into both Copper Ridge 4 and Copper Ridge 9. Andrew, can you advise the board what the pricing is? I don't have that in front of me right now. Or actually, Mary,
yes, we have received the firm. I was going to say the pricing of the credit has not changed from what I know. We do have a firm bid, though, on our values.
And thank you. Then my
Boston.
second question is, has the developer fee been changed at all to run this new set of numbers? Have you agreed to defer more of the developer fee?
Absolutely.
Yes, it has.
All right,
That's all the questions I had.
is there any other questions or discussion from the board? Is there a comment or questions from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the additional credit request.
This is Johnny. I move to approve.
I'll second. Gochi, I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. We'll be in the ground before the end of the month.
Pat, can I make a comment, please? Post these two additional awards. I would really like this issue to be addressed at the board planning in September, because I think we're seeing these more often, and I think we need to be really careful. And I just would like a broader board discussion at the planning session in September.
I think that's an excellent idea, Sheila. I have some concerns about additional credit requests after the fact, so I think it's a matter for discussion. All right, Mary, Niemont Manor bond resolution. As soon as you get done writing your note.
So this is a tax exempt resolution request for Niemont Manor in Glasgow. You have seen this property in the 9% round. Niemont Manor is located in Glasgow. It's a 100-unit family property. All of the units have project-based Section 8 subsidy. This will be an estimated $5.5 million tax-exempt bond transaction. Staff has reviewed the application. And we request that the board consider the request for the resolution. If the board decides, I don't know, we would request that you approve match bond resolution. I don't know what I did there.
Thank you, Mary. Is there any representative of Niemont Manor online that would like to discuss this request or the resolution?
This is Kirk Bruce.
Go ahead. Excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, Kirk Bruce with Affiliated Developers. Don't really have a lot to say, just hoping that we have the resolution. We have our HUD map debt financing went out this week to HUD, so we're hoping to have a firm commitment, sometime September, October.
Thank you, Kirk. Any further comments or questions from Niemont Manor? Hearing none, is there discussion or questions from members of the board?
This is Johnny. Mary, I didn't hear the end of what you had said there. As you were reading, I think you were reading through your agenda paper there. I didn't catch the very end of what you had said.
That we request that the board approve the attached resolution. I apparently repeated myself on my agenda. That's why I was kind of stumbling there.
Okay.
Oh, Mary, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Sheila. I had a question for Mary. Mary, was this one of the projects that was proposed for 9% credits during the competitive round?
Yes, it was.
Then I have a question for the developer. And that would be, the question for the developer would be, was there any possibility of putting all three of these projects together and doing it with 4% money? Seemed like the volume of units was enough, but there may be some other reasons that you couldn't do the entire three projects with 4% money.
Yeah, we had the discussion of especially if we didn't receive any LOI application for the 9% of doing that, but speaking with the bond council on our end, they didn't think it was a good idea putting all three projects together because of the different timing mechanisms. Niemont Manor is way down the road compared to some of the other ones.
You had three projects, and Niemont is one, and one was awarded credits, and then the third one, what's the plan there?
We're negotiating right now with the bank on a purchase price. Right now, the existing seller is in default on the loan.
And then your intention after you purchased it, or when you get a purchase sale agreement, would be a 4% application or a 9% application? What's your future there, do you think?
Well, we've underwritten it both ways. It works much better with a 9%, but if we are not able to get a 9% next year, we probably will go back at the 4% and maybe attempt to fill the gap with some home funds.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kirk. Are there further questions or discussion from members of the board? Are there questions or discussion from the public? The chair would entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
This is Sheila, so moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Jeanette. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any further questions or discussion from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the resolution signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries. Mary, Rockcross.
Pat, this is Sheila. I just want to make a quick comment, and that's to thank the developer of Niemont for using 4% and leaving the 9%, precious 9% to be stretched even further. So thank you. I'd also like to say, Pat, that I'll be abstaining from discussion and from the vote on the Rockcrest resolution.
Okay, Sheila. Mary, Rockcrest 4.
Rockcrest 4 is part of a 9-4 hybrid deal that was awarded credits for 17. And we are, the resolution was approved in February for $7 million, was amended in May to $14 million. This resolution will replace the previous resolution and the amendment. The new amount is $20 million. Bids are coming in higher than expected. The budget at this time requires $15 million. MBOH and Bond Council suggests the amount should be $20 million to cover any overages. Staff has reviewed the proposal to raise the bond amount and proposes the resolution be approved pending underwriting.
Mary, is there anyone from Rockcrest 4 that would like to speak to this resolution reapproval? Are there any questions or discussion from members of the board? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public? Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution reapproval.
So moved, Gochi.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Is there a second?
Second, it's Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further comments or questions from members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the resolution reapproval signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion is approved. Reverse annuity mortgage.
Okay, we have a, this is actually a second exception request on a borrower. We found that there was a silent second on their mortgage. So it's a couple in Missoula. Their income is about $31,000 after medical deductions. That would pay off the mortgage and the second mortgage, which is about $50,000, medical bills of $1,500, and home repairs and an accessible shower for $3,500. The exception request would be to do a cash advance to them at $55,000.
Okay. Are there any
Did you say what,
discussion from members of the board?
Mary, did you tell us what the appraisal in the house was?
We, I think it's about 180,000. I don't remember for sure. It's more than what we can use for an amount. We're topped at 150,000, and we only do 80% of that as a cap. So,
So she would draw 50 at 55, and she'd have about 65 or so to draw over 10 years.
yeah, probably, yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Are there further questions or discussion from members of the board? Are there comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the mortgage, reverse annuity mortgage exception.
So moved, Jeanette.
I'll second.
Who moved?
Jeanette.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Bob. All right, any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I think our last item here is the 2020 Housing Credit Qualified Allocation Plan Review.
So Nick, I just invited you, and you're right on the ball.
Okay, you can see it?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
So this is the proposed draft for the 2020 Qualified Allocation Plan. And as you guys know, every state does a housing, every housing credit allocating agency is required by Section 42 to have a QAP. And so this draft was created by staff working with developers and other interested parties. Staff is presenting the draft for board members to review. Board members will, member changes will be incorporated by Dick, who now has control of the webinar. And upon review, staff will release the 2020 QAP for public comment.
And just to clarify, at this point, we don't ask for board approval to release, we just incorporate comments. And part of the history behind that was there's been a couple of times we couldn't get a quorum together to release the plan. So the way we approached it was we made sure we got comments from board members, and then you officially approved the plan at our September meeting. So, sorry about that.
All right, Nick? Go ahead.
Okay.
He just, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Mary, how would you like to walk through this?
So I'm going to actually just go to the substantial comments. There are, as you'll notice, there are some red lines that I'm not going to cover, but those really are just clarification of language. So I am going to page 6, and this is the definition of placed in service. So we're clarifying, actually adding language that clarifies that there's a difference between a placed in service. Placed in service is the certificate of occupancy for new construction, which is issued by the proper jurisdiction in that area. For rehab, the new language states for rehabilitation expenditures that are treated as a separate new building, the close of the 24-month period determined in compliance with Section 42, over which such expenditures are aggregated, or if rehabilitation is completed in the minimum expenditures requirement of the code section is met in less than 24 months, the expenditures may be treated as placed in service at the close of such shorter period determined in compliance with Section 42. This definition is subject to applicable provisions of Section 42, and in the event of a conflict between the definition of and Section 42, the provisions of Section 42 shall control. So basically what happens when you have an acquisition rehab, for the rehabilitation, they have to meet a minimum expenditure to be able to place in service. So 99% of the time with a rehab, the placed in service date is actually a financial time where they have actually met that minimum expenditure. We can see C of O's on a rehabilitation if the locality requires it, but that is not very often. Okay, and then on page 8.
Board members, if you have any questions, ask them as we go along.
So you might want to just keep yourselves unmuted unless you got something going on.
And also, if there's any parts of this allocation plan you want to talk about that we aren't really highlighting or talking about, please bring those areas up.
So I'm moving to small rural projects. So we had a lot of discussion about this at the QAP session. In the past handful of years, we've had small projects come in. They've been presented to the board in a separate area on the, they've been separated out on your information, but we haven't actually awarded in the small project pool. So staff and developers felt that maybe we should get rid of the set aside, still have the small rural project definition that there is one and how much money they have to, the maximum amount that they can apply for. So that definition for small rural projects has now changed to taking out, basically just taking out for purposes of the project set aside. The rest of it is staying the same. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get further into the area that was for set aside. Okay, I'm moving to page 11. And Nick, if you have anything to say that you need to
Mary?
work on, or
Mary, this is Sheila. Right below the paragraph we were just on, it looks like the word soft costs have been added. It's red and underlined. And it just seems odd that soft cost is included in the definition of soft cost.
It's because there's a listing of what that number of that category is on the Uni app.
Sheila, it is a little bit strange, but really it comes into In the past couple of years, we've tried to simplify a little bit the calculations for these different types of costs. And when you start subtracting out just little pieces of categories, it makes it more complicated. So it actually makes the calculations extremely simplified, and it makes almost no effect on basically the limitation. I mean, including them or not including is just like hundreds of percentage points.
Question though is, the defined word is included in the definition.
Yeah, I don't, Bruce, this is Johnny. I don't think that it's really about the calculation as much as, so where it says soft costs means it's costs of professional fees, and you go on to detail what soft costs actually are. And then it says syndication costs, comma, soft costs and developer fees as shown in the applicant's properly. I don't know. It just kind of reads funny to me anyway.
And it's because there's a section in the UNIAP. All of these are sections in the UNIAP. Professional work and fees, interim costs, financing fees and expenses, syndication costs, and soft costs are also a section in the UNIAP.
Right.
So they needed to be included in that definition so that developers know which sections in the UNIAP count when they're doing that calculation.
Right. Okay, so.
Okay.
So I'm going to suggest that a compromise here might be to just, in parentheses, add soft costs and in parentheses per the UNIAP. Close parentheses.
Okay, it's six.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Or we can.
Are there two different definitions of soft costs? And we're talking about this soft cost definition and then one in the UNIAP.
So the soft cost, this definition is a whole amount of soft costs. There is also in the UNIAP the professional work and fees. There's a section where they list those. There's a section where they list all of the interim costs, which are loan costs, financing and fees and expenses, syndications. There's also a soft cost section. They list specific extra stuff that don't fall into these other categories, and developer fees. And it may be, maybe the easiest thing would be to change what the name of that soft cost section is inside there as other or something.
I guess the suggestion is take a look at it.
Right. Well, okay. That sounds, we'll take a look at that, rename it or clarify it more. Okay, page 11. There's been a lot of discussion about costs because of where bids are coming in and stuff with this. But they were trying to get us, developers were going to try and get us bid numbers, and they're so way out there right now that they didn't want to go there. So we just made an executive decision to bump it up some. That may change during the comment period. But we're suggesting at this point that the total project cost per unit may not exceed $240,000, raising that $5,000 per unit.
So Mary, I know that some developers have said we need different limits for different size apartments. Can you overview the discussion of that? Like we'd have one limit for 1 beds and another limit for 3 beds?
We did talk about that some, and there is some concern that somebody can an efficiency or a 1 bedroom, and they've even said it would be a luxury unit, and that. But the overall discussion was part of the reason that we have this number in there is that we can, if Congress comes to us and is looking at what we're doing in Montana, we can give them a hard number that we're not going over. Period, rather than to complicate it. We can complicate it, but the problem too is then you get down to square footage sizes inside of it. They're all different. We could get down to a square footage number, but then if they get off just a little bit, they're, you know, if their costs go up a little bit, if you're looking at a square footage number, you can get over that really, really fast.
And I'm comfortable where it is. I just wanted to kind of flesh out the discussion, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's been discussion not to necessarily change this maximum number, because really all this is saying is that, you know, in any event, any project on average where your unit cost is over $240 per unit, it's getting too expensive for us to do. If we want to go further and add in a different place of the allocation limitations on bedroom size, square footage, or whatever, that's part of the discussion Mary just had. Is it gets really complicated really quick on what that might be.
I think in the approval process, we have the opportunity to look at all those numbers.
Yeah. That's part of what we talked about too.
Okay, then moving on to the next page, on page 12. There was some language in here that looking at the right word. I'll let Bruce talk about it.
So I'll talk about this, and this is another one of those kind of spreadsheet calculation issues that came up and that I realized has been in the allocation plan, but we really haven't been doing. And what it involves is in transactions that have related parties, what we had originally said a few years ago was we're going to back those related party profit out of those calculations as we do them. Number one, until this year, we've never actually calculated that way because I didn't realize that this was a requirement. And number two is that, again, it makes the calculation just very complicated. And at the end of the day, it makes almost no difference in the limitations. So we just decided to take kind of that calculation piece out of this issue. The projects still have to, let us know if there are related party transactions. We still need to understand what that profit is looking like. It just takes it out of that calculation kind of issue, similar to what we talked about earlier.
And we very seldom have truly related parties involved in these transactions. Okay, the limitation on the soft costs, just in the next paragraph, that's kind of more clarification than anything, but so we added a third category, 32%. So we have or number one is the 32% for large projects, which has been more than 24 units. Number two has been 37% for small projects, 24 or fewer units or small rural projects under the definition. 3 is 40% for 4% credit projects. So the tax exempt projects, the 4% refers to the tax exempt projects, and the soft costs go up a fair amount because of bond costs on those projects. Just to point out a little bit on page 20, the dates that we're looking at this time are March 4th for letter of intent, because we did this QAP session early because of income averaging, we're able to move the cycle up some. So letter of intent submission would be March 4th. Invitation to board invitations to apply would be April 8th. Application submission July 1st, and the award determination mid to late September.
Yeah, the award's up a month. And you're right, 2 months.
2 months.
2 months, yeah.
And every time I do that, Paula goes, I just got used to it. I'm doing it just to aggravate her. Okay. On the next page, page 21. Staff materials provided to the board will show that goes to the small rural project stuff. So we added a part in here about the materials that will be provided to the board. So the materials will show small rural projects and other projects in separate groupings, which is what you have seen in the past. In considering applications for awards of credits, the board may first consider the award to small rural projects applying for credits. After any such initial consideration of small rural project applications, the board will consider award of remaining credits to any applicant. The board may, but is not required by this provision, to select any small rural project for award of credit. So it's basically saying what you have been doing.
So to explain just a little bit of history, for some of you that weren't around, years ago, we actually had a small project set aside that had so much money in it. Let's say
a small amount of money,
you know, like 500,000 in credit. And what the board was required to do was actually award that money within the small project pool. And you had to do that before you could move to the larger pool. This has evolved into more of a kind of a recognition that smaller projects have challenges that need to be considered by the board, but you're not required to allocate funds to those projects as a small project set aside anymore. It's really just, you know, more of a way that we can present these projects kind of separately at the top, so you have a chance to look at them and realize that they're smaller, they're harder to do, but then you can make your award decisions based on all of the things that you already do and consider when you do that. So that's kind of what's happening here, and you'll see in, I think, just the next one down is we're deleting that out of the set aside section, and it'll just be in here.
Right. And also to the history, you were required to award at one point, and then there was a change in the QAP that stated that you did not have to award. So, and that's what's been happening the last 3 or 4 years, I think, something like that. So now we're just basically taking set aside off of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
This is Johnny, just so I make sure I understand. So there is no longer a set aside pool for small rural projects, but you still are segregating those out when they're presented to us, just so that we know that there's a difference. That's what you guys are trying to get at here.
yes, and there still is a limitation on the amount they can apply for, which is 12.5 of the ceiling, 12.5% of the ceiling.
But you're correct, Johnny, exactly right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
On page 24, part of this discussion was around, we for 4 years now have a larger amount of credits. It's 31 million plus.
What was
and
it last year? 27 million?
27.8, I think. So, I was concerned that, or my thought was, we have this extra money only for 4 years. It's possible Congress could continue that, but the last time they raised the credit amount, they did not continue it past what the original bill said. So if we have that extra money, can we spread it further? So during the discussion, we ended up with, the maximum credit award in the past was that they could apply for 25% of the ceiling that we were aware of 20 days prior to the applicable application deadline. Developers suggested actually that we lower that to 20% of that 31 million. And we put language in here to that 20% limit shall increase to 25% limit beginning in 2022, because that initial bill said through 21. Unless Congress extends the 12.5 volume cap increase provided in the Consolidated Act, in which case, in this continue. Wanted to make sure that we didn't miss that at that time when that happened. So that's probably clear as mud. Sorry, guys.
No, I think I understand that.
Okay. Okay. So then section 7 is the set aside, and you'll see that we took the small rural project out of set aside. We'll have that consideration. They'll still be presented to you separately, but. And so the cleanup on the next page, on page 26, is removing that small project language from the set-aside language. So on page 34, I just wanted to point this out. In the scoring criteria, and this is in an odd place, and that's why it's marked blue, and we may move it somewhere. But at one point, several years ago, we changed the QAP to allow for a wider band of income qualification. For a 40% project, they can income qualify them up to 49%, but the rent has to stay at 40. And on a 50%, they can qualify them up to 55%, but the income or the rent has to stay at 50. With the new income averaging, they're not going to be able to do that if they choose income averaging. So we added language that says that if the projects were awarded between 1990 and 2016, because this grandfathered all projects that were existing at the time. So all of those projects, it's applicable to all those projects. For all other projects, such requirements will be included in the project's declaration of restrictive covenants, if applicable. So if someone going forward chooses a 40/60, we'll list, and we have been for a little while, but we'll list that they can go up to the 55 for the income but have to stay at the 50 for the rent. For the income averaging projects, that will not be included under restrictive covenants. So it's really just clarification, but I just wanted to bring it out. Page 46, this is clarifying language also, but wanted to make sure that you were aware of what we were doing here. This is on the refreshing credits. We're adding language that states the amount of credits reserved through a credit refresh shall not exceed the amount of the credits originally allocated by the board for the project, or the amount of the maximum credit award specified in the qualified allocation plan under which the credits were originally allocated. So as in what happened with Freedom's Path, they did come in for the same amount. This is saying they would be restricted to that same amount. And if they were, that they can't come back and ask for additional credits above that 25% amount where they originally were. Did we say 25%? No, we said maximum one, because we're changing that amount. That makes sense to everybody?
Yes.
And then the education requirements, page 53. Even though projects have to have their staff trained and they have to test and be certified, pass the test and be certified to work on the compliance side of things in projects. We've been having some trouble, a fair amount of trouble with that. And even though they're technically not a qualified management company, it's causing a lot of work for staff, and we're not seeing any traction on that. So visited with Greg and Nick, and they came up with this language. We're proposing that they get charged a fee if they don't that requirement. So in the event the management company fails to meet the certification or training requirements in subsection H, MBOH will notify the management company and the owner of such noncompliance and the date by which such noncompliance must be corrected. Such noncompliance is not corrected by such date, it will be required to pay the applicable fees specified in the fee schedule for each week. That such noncompliance for each week that such noncompliance remains uncorrected. And we have a noncompliance fee in there. I think it's $100 a week. Might be more than that. I can't remember what the last update was. But we'll make sure that you know what that is. We'll include that in the
enough to be
document.
an incentive to get into compliance. Right?
Yes, exactly.
So, Mary, I have a question on this particular education requirements. During the QAP discussions, did we get any input from the tribal operations?
There was, at the QAP session, there was no one there from tribal country.
I guess my concern is when the very first project I did, the Felsman edition over 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago, whatever it was, I was required by my agreement with the investor, which was created by Travel, to use an affiliate of theirs to do certifications. It wasn't an option. And we fought it pretty significantly because at that time we had fabulous capacity that met all HUD standards, and I couldn't see why we would send off files. I'd like to, I think that the certification should include some of the realities that tribes have to deal with too, if that's what we're trying to get at.
So the issues we've had with the certification stuff is not on tribal lands.
Yeah.
They're all certified, as far as I know.
Well, I don't have any particular problem with this. As a matter of fact, I always, to the tribes that are under our association, I always promote outstanding capacity and to get certified well before and understand well before you even apply. You know, I think that, you know, we want to improve capacity. I just want to make sure that if we have this educational requirements, that it does not create an unintended impediment.
Oh, yeah, there's all, and there are several options for training, including online these days. Training it runs about the same kind of cost as other professional training these days, you know, between, I would say, $400 and $600 per person, but they can do it sitting in their office. They don't have to go somewhere, although we still bring someone in to do that periodically. In fact, our compliance training in the spring will cover this full gamut, and they will be able to take a test and do that there, which will reduce the cost for the attendees.
I'll do it, Brad. Thank you.
And I think that's it. You guys might want to take a scan through and see if there's something else maybe, and you definitely have time during the comment period to let us know about stuff.
When does the comment period end?
The comment period will start today, and it will end a few days before.
A week before the board meeting
in September. In September.
Okay.
And we'll have a hearing in between there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the board regarding the QAP, the proposed 2020 QAP?
Mary, I apologize if this is making you repeat something. But
okay.
I wanted to go through income averaging again, because under the new law, correct, we have an opportunity to have to be able to serve a slightly higher income class. And I just wanted to see if did we do that? Did we go to the 70%, or how have we treated the income averaging?
We have not figured that out yet. We're going to have some calls with developers and actually compliance management companies. We did add under the minimum set aside, we have put it in there in that it will not be available until we can get rules for the compliance manual at this point, because it's going to probably be after the QAP has been approved that we get it all figured out. So we'll put it into the compliance manual, the rules, and then we'll get them incorporated into the QAP probably the next time around. But we also have to be able to get software on board and people trained. And some of the requirements that they're going to have to do a new market study if they're changing. New Uni app, they're going to have to meet the same scoring as they did previously or higher. Investor's going to have to sign off. If there's another program involved, they need to sign off that they're aware and what the impacts with their program could be. Management company's going to have to be trained and sign off that they will agree to do it.
So what you just described was for projects that have already been awarded, not future projects?
Right. And we're not ready to be able to say that they can do it yet for this round. Or which is actually 19, not this QP.
Right. So in a year, we could put something in the QAP that would include income averaging. But in order to qualify for that, if you've already been awarded, that would be in the rules, or it would be in the QAP? Can projects that have been awarded to date and in this round ever be able to qualify for income averaging?
If we're able to get the stuff in place, there will be a set of rules that they'll need to meet to be able to qualify for that. And what we're looking at right now is that they would come to us with a request at least 6 months before Lisa. But at this point, the projects that are awarded next year would probably, well, if they think they're going to do income averaging, would choose the 40/60 and then would come into us later when we have everything in place to be able to change to the income averaging.
Right. And a project that was awarded in the last round or the round before, I'm just thinking, because you have to have 6 months before lease up. So these are fairly new awards in the last year or so. They could come in under the rules?
That's possibly, yes. We are saying that that's possible at this point. I can't say yes or no. There's some concern out there that that's already been chosen, but the 8609s have not been done. So that's actually the final allocation, and that's where they choose that minimum set aside. So on the 8609s now, there's a place, always has been, for 20 at 50, which is 20% of the units, minimum of 20% of the units have to be at 50. The 40/60, which is the minimum of 40% of the units have to be at 60. Almost all of our projects are 100% tax credit. So like on a 40/60, all of their units would have to be at 60 or less as far as the IRS is concerned. There is also now on the 8609s an income averaging spot. So, but we have to be ready to take that on also. So we have to get those rules in place and probably be having a call on that, say, in the next month or so.
Okay. So Bruce, I would again ask that this become a topic of conversation in the board discussion, the strategic planning. I don't really know how this is going to impact things, but I'm very interested in it. And I think all of us are. In some ways, you know, the worst possible place to be in America today is to be at 62% of area median income. You can't qualify for hardly anything. But I just think it's worth fleshing out for the board at the September meeting so we can discuss it in a knowledgeable manner.
Very good recommendation. It will be on there.
Thank you, Sheila.
And Mary, thank you for spending extra time with me.
You bet.
Are there further questions or comments from board members regarding the 2020 draft qualified application plan? Are there any comments or questions from members of the public regarding that plan? Okay, thank you.
So as you guys look through this, whether it's a planning meeting or, well, you're going to be approving it at that, but if you have any comments that come to you later, please let Bruce or myself know. We will incorporate those comments.
I'm assuming we can make changes at the
Oh, yes,
September
you can.
meeting,
Yes, you'll be able to make changes then too. But if
Yeah.
you have things that you think you want in, we can get it incorporated ahead of time.
Okay, that's it, Mary, for
I think that's
multifamily?
all. I just a quick update. Freedom Path did finally close with the investor. I believe it was the last weekend in July.
Wow. That took a while. All right, any other comments or questions from board members before we adjourn? Any comments or questions from members of the public before we adjourn? The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, Goshi.
Okay, it's been moved, we adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, have a good day. Bye.